Hello, everyone. So the provenance on this fan came from my aunt who was on vacation in Florida. She picked it up at a flea market for a very low price. Obviously, it was not in running condition. Looked like it had been stored either in a garage or in the elements for a very, very long time. So the cage was so rusted and pitted, it wasn't really a viable option to strip and redo. So the intent was to make it mechanically sound and run and leave the fan in the cosmetic condition that it was. So we're going to make a rat rod out of it. And so watch as we tear this thing apart and make it run. So a little background on the Delco fan here. Originally, the Rochester Coil Company was established in 1908, and in that same year they changed their name to Northeast Electric Company. The Northeast Electric Company was purchased by General Motors in '29 and was consolidated with the Delco Light Division, which came out of Dayton, which was originally Dave Fan. In 1930, it became the Delco Appliance Division. So you'll find similar fans to this model 1500. This is a model 1600 that also have the exact same shape and cage branded under the Northeast. So the badge on the cage will actually say Northeast, and it'll look exactly like this fan. So you can see some similarities to Westinghouse with this stamped steel stator, and some of the oscillating features are very, very similar. So, so we really can't give an exact date on this fan, but it's roughly around the 1930s, because as with many U.S. companies at the outbreak of World War II, the Delco Appliance Division was retooled to produce components for the war, right? So some of the things they made were aircraft supercharger parts and magnetos, all the way to bomb sight motors, periscope gun sight motors, fire directors for anti-aircraft emplacements, and even generators for Stuart tanks and 75 millimeter howitzer gun carriages. So you can see here this the four wingers really fighting me here. It's brass hub and spiders with steel blades, and it was just rusted on there, and I couldn't get it. So we had to finally have to heat that thing up to get her off. That's right. Yeah, same with the rotor. It was just so rusted and pitted, it just did not want to come out of the front or back bearing, and I had to knock it out of there. So. However, it did clean up really well, and did not hurt the fan one bit, knocking it out of there.
Yummy.
Yep, always got all sorts of creatures and surprises that you find in the stumps of these fans. Those of you that do this on a regular basis find all sorts of crazy critters that have been preserved for us to take a look at once it sees the light of day. So what I'm doing now is diagramming the speed coil, since I've never worked on one of these before. I denote where each wire went, and I'm taking a ohm reading now on the stator to see if this 4-pole shade motor is going to be worth our time putting a new head wire on it. And also I record that and make sure that same ohm reading is very, very close once the new wiring's in place. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to keep the patina, I guess, if you want a lack of a better term, intact on this fan, since it was just such a road hog. And, I hadn't actually done that before. Typically what I try to do is either restore the original paint or completely strip and either powder coat or paint to make them look kind of like that French gray you see there in the background. But on this one, we took 2 coats of clear gloss, and then 2 coats of matte clear over top of that, and wanted to, after we cleaned it all up, just give it a little preservation of where the fan was at from a aesthetics perspective, as well as kind of do some rust protection.
Die, 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 die. Almost died.
So this is a 2-wire head wire, and there's about as many different ways to replace a head wire, incorrect or correct, as there are people redoing fans. How I do it, after I solder each individual wire to the leads coming off the stator, I use heat shrink tubing over each individual line, and then what I'm doing there is using a liquid tape to go between the stator and the heat shrink tubing. Once that's complete, I take another piece of heat shrink tubing and go over all wires, which will remain inside the motor housing. And then I ultimately, at the very end, after that's all dry, I actually tie that to some of the coils on the stator, so that secures that, and when that motor oscillates, it doesn't stress that new connection. So you see the digital calipers laying there. I use that during disassembly to measure all the metal and fiber washers that come off the rotor, and some of the oscillating gears. It's really imperative that you write all of that down and note their thickness so they can be replaced exactly where you got them, whether you put in new or use the original ones that are cleaned up. Those rotors like to run at a certain area within that stator, and very often, if you change those or get them incorrect, you're going to have a fan that likes to run hot or not run at all, so that's important. So as we're doing some final wiring here, getting ready for the first run, Delco post-World War II never went back into the appliance division. They never made any more fans after 1941. So the company is now known as AC Delco, which I'm sure you've probably heard of, that supplies parts to all of General Motors. So fans running real strong, 3 distinct speeds. And what we're getting ready to do now is put the blade on and see how crab nasty this thing is. And it was terrible. I didn't even want to run it. The pitch and the clocking was just completely terrible. So we'll get this all buttoned up, the switch installed, and all of the wires squared away, and we'll get ready to do some clock and pitch on the blade soon. So while we go through reassembly here, I just want to take a couple of minutes and talk about fancollectors.org. There is an association of fan collectors, and if you are new to doing this and you want to learn how to preserve, restore, repair the correct way, I seriously suggest you take a couple of moments, go out there, create an account, introduce yourself, and then consider joining if this is something you're going to be doing more than once. It's an amazing group of folks. I'm not getting paid for this endorsement. It's just they've helped me so much over the years. I'm a member. I've been a member for a while, and I've made some really amazing contacts. And the cool thing about it is that you probably are not going to run into an issue that hasn't already been addressed. So as you come out into the forums, before you just ask for a question, do a quick search through the forums, and most likely you'll probably find the answer. So, but great group of folks. We have a yearly fan meet that is coming up here shortly, and there are regional ones all over the U.S. Great place to meet people, pick up fans, and enjoy the hobby. So I never would have thought in a million years that there was folks all over the U.S. that did this, and I've been a member for on and off now for well over 10 years, and great folks. So enough said. Check it out. I'd also like to call out that the line and head wire came from Old School Wire. Amazing product.
That is strong motor, man. Play.
All right, we're getting down to the end here, folks. As we put the blade back on the fan, we're going to get ready to do clock and pitch. This can be a bit tedious and a little difficult for the beginner. I still have trouble with it. I'm not very good at it, but I get by. So basically what we're doing is we're marking each blade, and we are applying a strobe and adjusting the RPM of the strobe so we can see where the pitch, meaning the angle of each blade from front to back, matches the rest of the blades that are on the hub, as well as clocking, which means what position on the face of the clock each blade or spider that the blade is attached to is geometrically equal to the others, right? So in a 4-blade fan, so to speak, basically they should be at a 90-degree clocking to each other. I had some serious adjustments to do on this one in both clock and pitch, and it did take some time. I'm not going to bore you with all of it, but needless to say, the fan doesn't shake off its foundation anymore, and runs really well. So now we've got the cage back on, and it's just cleanup. Well, that wraps up the Rat Rod fan from Delco in the 1930s. Hope you enjoyed it.